Well, hello again, and this is take two on Saturday the 31st. Uh, it's a little after 5 o'clock on Saturday. Now, I have to get this done uh, soon. I'm cutting it kind of close here. I have to get this into KPCA. So, without further ado, here's the intro music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. I kind of lost track of when I had to record because the three shows before this included one extra one in between the normal every other Sunday. But be that as it may, here we go. This is take number 2. My audio engineer Dennis set up the intro and outro music and all of the sound effects in a very much simpler way for me to handle, and of course I blew it. So the first 2 minutes after I realized that things weren't really working well, I gave a quick emergency call down to my audio engineer, and he set me straight, as he always does. Okay. Shout outs. Let's start with the East Coast this time. Geraldine Goldfinger out on Long Island. Dave Rubin in the Raleigh-Durham area. Nelson and Alice Lydell down in Sarasota, Florida. And potential new listener Amelia in the St. Augustine area. Moving right over to the Arizona area, I got to say a shout out to my brother Brandon in Santan Valley and his wife Mina and their daughter, my niece Andrea, who's a nurse in one of the hospitals down there close to Santan Valley. Take care of yourself. Boy, I hope this country is not going to suffer through another COVID-19 peak, but it is looking like it is in certain areas of the country. All my listeners are vaccinated, but for those of you who might be listening and are not vaccinated, please, for the sake of your neighbors, get vaccinated. Okay. Locally, Stan down in Pacifica and Rich over in Sebastopol. Tim Conrad here in Petaluma, the good photographer. I forgot an Arizona person. Karina Hilliard, my favorite snake removal technician over in Sacramento. Dave and Rosie Takach and Mickey Huff, the godfather of Project Censored, who has a show on this station, KPCA-LP, on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. Listen in. Very interesting shows. And that show is repeated over at KPFA 94.1 over in Berkeley. And let's see, am I missing anybody? I probably am, but I've got to get going with this. Okay, I promised everybody that I would start working on more and more good news. Well, in that vein, here is some good news. Bayer AG, the parent company since 2018 of Monsanto, the evil corporation. They're facing billions of dollars in liability to cancer victims. Okay, a corporate decision was made to stop selling the current version of Roundup. Okay, glyphosate is being replaced with, and this is a corporate quote. You can take it with a grain of salt, as I do all the time when I hear corporate blather. Okay, quote. Glyphosate's being replaced with, quote, a new formulation that rely on alternative active ingredients. Now, that could mean anything. The alternate active ingredients could be just as dangerous as glyphosate. It could be. They wouldn't admit to it or call it anything else if it were. And this is all subject to approval by the EPA. Now, do we trust the EPA to be honest in their findings? Well, in the previous administration of the orange bloat bag, no, I would not trust EPA to do anything except corporations' bidding. But hopefully, Joe Biden has replaced a lot of the upper echelon in the EPA with responsible, honest scientists. Okay. All articles that I see that are issued by corporate hierarchies, I always am suspicious of them because, typically they'll say something like that, like this. The safety of our customers and their complete satisfaction is always our number one priority. They always say things like that. You can tell it was written by some corporate hack. Okay, the EPA has declared glyphosate to not be carcinogenic. All right, that's still their take on glyphosate. However, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is an arm of the World Health Organization, said in 2015, that's 6 years ago, that glyphosate was a, quote, probable cause of cancer in humans. Well, there's been, within the last 3 or 4 years, a number of lawsuits, mainly out here on the West Coast in the Ninth Federal Circuit Court, of people who have worked in garden maintenance or agriculture or such fields and have used Roundup as part of their daily activities. Well, a number of these workers have come down with cancer and have, along with their lawyers, have sued in court, and they have won. However, Bayer is going to take some of these court awards, which run into the millions of dollars, all the way to the Supreme Court. And I don't know, with the Supreme Court justices that were appointed by the orange bloat bag, I hope they win. Okay. That's a bit of good news. I've kind of, in my notes here, I've interspersed the good news with religion bashing. So I'm just going to go down this just like they are in my notes. Okay. Schadenfreude, which is a German word for getting pleasure out of the misfortune of others. Well, in my case, here's an example of that. The top administrator of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, Monsignor Jeffrey Burrell, resigned. Now, this happened a couple of weeks ago after a Catholic media site, it's called The Pillar. I would Google that if I were you out there, if you want to figure out what evils the Catholic Church are up to. Okay, they found out that he, Jeffrey Burrell, Monsignor Jeffrey Burrell, was a prominent user of Grindr. And for those of you who don't know what Grindr is, it is a dating website for gays. Okay, and he frequented this and also frequented gay bars. I don't know how the Pillar found this out. People ratting him out, or I'm sure they didn't hire a private investigator to follow him around and see which gay bars he frequented, but apparently he did. So Monsignor Jeffrey Burrell and his Conference of Catholic Bishops, who are debating as we speak whether or not to deny Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, deny him the Eucharist at Mass because he is, some newspaper stories say he is pro-abortion. No, he is not pro-abortion. Nobody in their right mind is pro-abortion. What we are is pro women's right to control their own reproductive health. I wish that news organizations would use that phrase rather than pro-abortion versus pro-life. Well, the pro-life people, the supposed conservative, moral people that they are, they're only pro-life when the fetus is inside the mother's womb. Once it gets born, they are the same Republicans that vote against food stamps and the SNAP program and all sorts of other real pro-life features of the administration, the government administration. Yeah, okay. It says on here, riff. Well, I've been riffing. Okay. Back to MGN, which is a abbreviation for more good news. Okay. For a long time, ever since I started this show, and it's almost 5 years ago on KPCA LP, one of the things that I've been talking about are GMOs, and I am not anti-GMO. I am very much pro-GMO. Now, that stands for genetically modified organisms. Now, a lot of environmentalists on the left, and I'm a lefty, but a lot of the environmentalists on the left are freaked out about this term that they came up with, Frankenfoods. Well, a lot of GMOs, in fact, I would argue that most GMOs, especially when it comes to plants and agricultural practices, GMOs are a good thing. Now, okay, here's some good news about GMOs. The Philippines became the world's first country to approve the commercial production of GMO, quote-unquote, golden rice. That's what the name of this genetically modified strain of rice is. They've given the name golden rice to it. That will combat childhood blindness and save lives in the developing world. A biosafety permit issued by government regulatory paves, God, my notes, my handwriting, paves the way for the rice, this particular strain of GMO rice. What it has in it is extra beta carotene, which is a vitamin A precursor. And okay, I don't want to, I can't go into the chemical pathway from beta carotene all the way to vitamin A. And for those of you who know, vitamin A is an essential vitamin for good eyesight. And Russell Reinke, capital Reinke, of the Philippine-based International Rice Research Institute, said, quote, "We are past the regulatory phase and golden rice is declared safe." Okay. It's not that rice plants didn't have beta carotene in it before, but what it was in the stalks and leaves of the rice plant, not in the grains itself. And so countries that depend on rice as one of their main staples, the children were not getting enough vitamin A in their diets. Okay, well, what the researchers have done is modified this rice genetically so that more beta carotene is developed in the rice grain itself rather than being mostly in the stalks and the leaves. Okay, which is a good thing. Okay, limited quantities of seed could be distributed to farmers next year, 2022. This is a very recent article. Environmental groups have strongly opposed GMO food plants, and test fields in the Philippines have been attacked and torn up and plowed under by anti-GMO radical environmentalists. Well, that's a horrible thing to do. However, when radical environmentalists do something like liberate animals from, say, mink farms, or worry about the humane treatment of animals, I'm all for that. And I'm very weary of attempts at genetically modifying farm animals, for instance. You don't quite know what's going to come out of that. But this golden rice strain has been tested over and over again, and extra beta carotene in the rice grains, that is a good thing. Okay, beta carotene is produced in the rice plant, but not in the grain in ordinary rice. This is another quote from Reinke. "The only change we've made is that GMO golden rice now produces beta carotene in the grain." Nearly 17% of children under the age of 5 in the Philippines are deficient in vitamin A. World Health Organization data says vitamin A deficiency causes 500,000 cases of childhood blindness worldwide every year. Yay. Score one for GMO developed golden rice. Okay, I've got to take a quick sip here. Okay, MGM, more good news. President Biden's push for, quote, good union jobs in clean energy industries, solar and wind, has increased hope that organizing solar and wind workers can close the pay gap between them and fossil fuel workers. Okay, now we're talking about unions here, and I went on here and my computer, my website, my internet, and saw a chart that compared average wages paid for solar panel installers, wind farm installers versus coal miners versus natural gas drillers versus oil drillers. Well, the fossil fuel workers are paid quite a bit more per hour than our renewable energy workers. And there was some good news out of West Virginia. A solar installation company, fairly large, allowed themselves to be organized by the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Now, that union should have been out organizing solar and wind workers yesterday. The fact that they're getting around to it now, they kind of dropped the ball on that. But they're doing it now. Okay, that's the good thing. And a little bit of a riff on unions here. I am a strong advocate of unions. I'm retired now, but I worked for a bit more than 10 years in the Teamsters when I was with a beer and beverage distribution company. When they organized the beer delivery drivers and the warehousemen, well, they sucked in the salesmen along with them, which is fine. So I'm drawing a small pension now because I was only with them for about 10 years. But the majority of my working life in quote unquote a real job was with Safeway. And so I was with the UFCW, United Food and Commercial Workers Union, for a total of about 20 years. About 5 of those years was part-time. So I'm getting a pension check every month from them too. And when you hear people arguing that unions may have been useful in history, in the history of our country, but they're no longer needed now, that is BS. BULLSHIT. We need them now. Not so much for wages, although wages do need to increase along with inflation and trying to close the gap between that mythological upper 10% and the middle class. We do need it for that. However, the question arises, do you trust your union or do you trust management? from wherever it is you work, like management and Safeway. Well, if it weren't for the fact that we were in the unions, management, generally speaking, would run roughshod over you as far as things like lunch breaks, coffee breaks, scheduling, things like that. The ideal situation for management would be for their workers to have no other life except sitting by the phone to wait for a phone call to come in and work when they need you, at the drop of a hat. Well, we do have lives, and we aren't at the beck and call of management. And membership in a union will stand by you if you kind of object to, split shifts or split days off. And if you have enough seniority to get a fixed schedule each week, well, you should get it. Okay. Unions have given us the weekend. Now, we got that back in the early 20th century. And it's unions that have elevated the working class, by and large, up into the middle class. And hence, the backbone of the Democratic Party. At least that's the way it should be. It distresses me when a lot of blue-collar workers have switched over to the Republican Party as if they give a damn about the working class. Well, they don't. I hope that the leaders of the Democratic Party now concentrate on encouraging unions and encouraging middle-class working stiffs, like I used to be, to join or stay in the Democratic Party. It kind of distresses me that Democratic Party leadership aren't more aggressive and every bit as mean as the Republicans are in dealing with Republicans. I've heard it say that Democrats always, or they never fail to bring a soup ladle to a knife fight. I've heard that a couple of times and in various iterations. Well, when we start getting seriously renewable energized in this country, and the jobs for installing solar panels and wind farms, et cetera, really take off, it behooves the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, to organize these people. Don't wait around like the Democratic Party leadership is. Okay. All right, that was good news that we are getting electrified in this country. Okay. A lot of the past three shows have consisted mostly of religion bashing, and I don't like to be angry. I really don't, even though people who listen to this show and listen to me blathering on probably believe that my whole life is centered around bashing religion. Well, it's not. But I've said before, and it's my sincere and deep belief, just like religious people's deep and sincere belief, that religion has done more harm than good for humanity ever since, humanity became humanity. All right. And I tell myself that I think my listeners are just tired of hearing religion bashing all the time. Well, maybe there's a few that listen to me and they aren't tired of it. Well, here it is. I ran across this and I just can't ignore it. Okay. There's a documentary that's come out, and it's called Vice Versa, Crusaders. All right. And it's on Vice TV. For those of you who have access to that streaming service, I guess that's what you call it now, rather than a channel. That ages myself. When my family got our first TV, we had 3 channels out of San Francisco: KPIX, Channel 5, KRON, Channel 4, and KGO, Channel 7. And a short time later, Channel 9, KQED. All of these are out of San Francisco, and that kind of ages me because we call them channels. Well, let's watch Channel 5. Okay, well, we have all these streaming services now, and, I watch them, but they're, to me, a relatively new thing because I'm so low tech. All right. Aaron Kaufman, in 2017, began researching for this documentary on the, wait for it, Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, I've gone on and on about child molestation in the Catholic Church. Well, there's certainly plenty of that, and then I have another newspaper article that I'm going to read excerpts from a little later on. However, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they no longer do this, but they used to be the people that would knock on your door and have a copy of a magazine called Awake or Watchtower. And they would be, well-dressed ladies, usually. Occasionally a guy in a suit and tie would be going house to house with them, but their attempt is to convince you that the world is going to hell in a handbasket and that you can save yourself by accepting Jesus as your Savior and becoming a Jehovah's Witness like they are. Okay, well, they don't do that anymore. They usually sit out in front of supermarkets with this wire rack full of their magazines and other publications, and they're sitting there waiting for people to walk up to them and say, "Hey, what are you guys doing out here? What magazines are you giving away?" Okay, well, that's the door opening for their spiel. Sorry, that was another sip. Okay. His research led to Philadelphia and a lawsuit filed by Stephanie Fessler. She had been sexually abused many times when she was a witness in Spring Grove, York County. This is in the state of Pennsylvania. Witness elders had discouraged her parents from contacting the police. And in fact, that's one of the tenets of the Jehovah's Witnesses. They have rules that every JW has to abide by. They keep their troubles, they keep their conflicts in-house, so to speak. And this research on that led to this, Aaron Kaufman's research led to this documentary, Vice Versa, Crusaders. Okay. Jehovah's Witnesses is a cult. Okay. You might disagree with me in my characterization of them as a cult. They would call themselves a denomination of Christianity. Well, I'm here to tell you that they're a cult, an extremely successful cult, but a cult nonetheless. And the authority that I have for labeling them a cult, the Midnight Skeptic. I call them a cult. Therefore, they are a cult. Okay. They're very secretive. They don't let outsiders come in without a lot of brainwashing, and they have to determine whether you're a sincerely interested outsider that may want to become a JW. They discourage their membership from attending college, and we're talking about the younger people now. And they discourage their members from becoming truly integrated into the rest of the world that they see as essentially evil. And especially, they don't want their membership going to outside authorities, which brings us to the pedophilia problem in the Jehovah's Witnesses cult. Okay, officially they're called the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. And one site that I would encourage all my listeners to go to is capital J, capital W, Watch. It's a website where I guess disgruntled ex-JWs have started this website to expose them as the cult that they are. The Jehovah's Witnesses have about 8.5 million members worldwide. And one of the punishments, if any of the membership should transgress, is defellowship. And it's kind of like excommunicating. You lose all your privileges, I guess, if you're defellowshipped. And child abuse records, and they keep all these records internally, reveal extensive data collections by the Jehovah's Witnesses. They have a central headquarters back east. I'm not quite sure exactly where it is. I think it's in upstate New York. Okay, now here's another case. Alexis Nunez's attorneys have filed a motion to compel the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York to turn over 10 pages of detailed database records involving this particular abuser, Max Reyes. He's a witness, Jehovah's Witness, and 3 of his victims, including Nunez, in a 2018 trial in Thompson's Falls, Montana. This is where Alexis Nunez, she's in her early 20s now, and then she decided to try to blow the whistle on the abuse she received when she was a witness, and she was abused by another witness, an older witness. In this trial in Montana, 2018, in Thompson's Falls, Montana. And this 2018 trial concluded that Thompson's Falls elders, that's, the boss men of the Jehovah's Witnesses, violated Montana's abuse reporting laws. Okay, what is supposed to happen if you're a Jehovah's Witness and if you are molested either by another Jehovah's Witness or, heaven forfend, one of the elders, you are supposed to report it to the elders, and they will fill out a form. And it is a form. I've seen them on the website with little boxes that you can check off. Was this sexual abuse or physical abuse or verbal abuse, especially the sexual? It says, was this consensual? It doesn't ask about age, at least in that section of the form. Anyway, the elders in the Jehovah's Witness temple, I guess that's what you call them, or meeting hall, or wherever they meet, this will be filled out and it will put into a blue envelope and mailed to the Jehovah's Witnesses headquarters back in upstate New York. And they have tons of these on record. And it is a problem. These two court cases are just two out of hundreds and hundreds that you can look up if you want to blow hours and hours looking all these things up about the Jehovah's Witnesses. So Catholic priests, you're in good company. I'm being sarcastic. Jehovah's Witnesses, and I might do another partial show on abuses, sexual abuses in the Southern Baptist churches and Mormon churches. They're all over the place. Like I've said, it is my sincerely held deep belief that religion in all its forms has been a detriment to the progress of humanity. Now, where am I? Okay. Enough of that. Okay, more good news. Okay, Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC head, Gary Gensler, said that he wants a mandatory disclosure by corporations on climate risks. Finally, this is seeping into the securities and exchange world. Okay, he wants a rule established by the end of the year. Investors are demanding more information on climate change. Senator Snowball, James Inhofe of Oklahoma, Republican, of course. Are you listening to this? Even investors, stock and bonds investors, hedge fund managers, they're beginning to get truly worried about climate change and how it affects their investments. I hope you all remember that James Inhofe, about 5 or 6, 7 years ago, maybe, I don't remember, he brought a snowball into the Senate chambers and held it up as proof that the climate was not warming. It was wintertime when he did this, and there was snow on the ground in Washington, D.C. He is a typical idiot Republican. What can I say? And when I disparage Republicans in general, friends of mine and my brother who are registered Republicans, I don't necessarily lump you guys in with the general run-of-the-mill idiot Republican. There are some smart Republicans. You know, I know a few. Okay. Now I didn't know this until I read about it. An annual 10K form that companies have to file with the Securities and Exchange Commission should include climate disclosures. This is what Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, appointed by the Biden administration. Trump would never have put somebody like him in charge of the SEC. Okay, 92% of companies that are listed on the Standard & Poor's list plan now to set emission reduction goals. Okay, so now that, Republicans, some of them, are still denying that global climate change is a thing. I wish whoever in the Republican political party still is not believing it should just take a little vacation out west here, specifically to Northern California, specifically to the border between Oregon and Northern California, and to see these fires going off and witnessing firsthand the drought that we're undergoing out here on the West Coast. Not that facts matter to Republicans. That's just a pipe dream. Okay, alrighty. This is filed under more good news. Let's see, where am I going? I'm going to have to put my glasses on for this. I now subscribe to the New York Times, except that their print version. Okay, I like to get the newspaper. I'm old-fashioned. I like to feel pages as they're being turned. However, their print font is quite small. I mean, I can read the Chronicle without reading glasses, but not the New York Times. Okay, but anyway, this is listed under more good news. No, that's not going to work. Okay, it's about the Remington Firearms Company. They are offering, in other words, trying to buy off the families of Sandy Hook for $33 million. Okay, I hope you all remember Sandy Hook. It was in Remington, which made the AR-15 style Bushmaster that was used in the 2012 attack of this grammar school in Sandy Hook, Massachusetts. The Remington Company has proposed settling with the families for $33 million as a trial date looms. I think that the Remington Company just doesn't want, public testimony to get out into the general public. It makes them look bad. The families have long said that they want a jury to see the company's behind-the-scenes communications, including possibly those in which they outline plans for marketing the weapons, a central component of the suit. And why is marketing a central component? Well, there was a Republican-sponsored bill passed by the United States Congress and signed by Trump, exempting weapons manufacturers from lawsuits. So no matter how badly their products make life for all of us, you can't sue them. Okay. There's an exception to that. Okay. Let's see. The families argue that Remington's marketed the assault rifle in a way that was meant to appeal to troubled young men like the 20-year-old who stormed into the elementary school in Newtown, Connecticut. I think I said Massachusetts a while back, but it's Connecticut. Killing 20 first graders and 6 adults in a spray of gunfire that saw 154 rounds fired off in under 5 minutes. Remington has filed for bankruptcy relatively recently, by the way. The exception to this federal rule against suing firearm manufacturers exempts violations of sales and marketing practices that violate state or federal laws. Okay. The family's lawyers have described how the Bushmaster was portrayed in advertising as a weapon of war with slogans and product placement in video games that invoked combat violence and manly practices. The marketing of the rifle also employed hyper-masculine themes, including an advertisement with a photograph of the... Let me finish this sentence. With a photograph of the weapon that said, "Consider your man card reissued." Oh, Jesus. Okay. Well, I hope that the bankruptcy court judge doesn't cut them too much slack. And I really hope they go out of business. And the workers that work for Remington just get retrained into something else. I don't begrudge the workers on the manufacturing floor, the owners and stockholders of Remington. I do hold them culpable. Okay, excuse me. Another sip of coffee here. Okay, I've got time for another article. And this is troubling, very troubling. Forgotten oil and gas wells linger, leaking chemicals. Okay. Now, I was astounded by how many abandoned oil and gas wells there are in this country. Well, here we go. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, 3.2 million abandoned oil and gas wells exist in the United States. About a third were plugged with cement to prevent leaks. Well, good luck with that. Most haven't been plugged at all. Many of the wells are releasing methane. Methane, I forget the chemical. 1 carbon, 4 hydrogen atoms. H4C, I believe that's how it is. Anyway, it's a environmentally dangerous gas that helps warm the atmosphere. The only reason it's not quite as bad as CO2 is that there's just not as much methane in the atmosphere from all the different sources. Cow burps and farts and everything also add methane to the atmosphere. But anyway, these abandoned oil wells are murder on the atmosphere. Many of the wells are releasing methane, greenhouse gas, Some are leaking chemicals such as benzene, a known carcinogen, into groundwater. Regulators don't know where hundreds of thousands of abandoned wells are because many were drilled before modern record keeping and plugging rules were established. They are a silent menace, threatening to explode or contaminate drinking water. President Biden wants to spend billions plugging the wells. Well, good union jobs there. Let's get on it. But Congress, meaning Republicans, is unlikely to allocate enough money to seriously confront the issue. Where's my slide whistle? Anytime money wants to be spent in improving our lives or helping people, you can be sure that Republicans will vote against it. With these headphones on, there is an echo that kind of screws with my talking a lot, more so than just my normal advancing years mess with my talking. Okay, here we go. The last article, and this is day before yesterday's paper. Back on the anti-religion rant. Defrocked cardinal, and this is a upper guy in the Catholic Church, charged with sexually assaulting a boy. And it's a Catholic. Yeah. Former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, who was defrocked after a Vatican investigation. This wasn't local police. This was the Vatican investigators. They defrocked him. They confirmed that he had sexually molested adults as well as children. For the benefit of the YouTube people, I'm going to hold this picture up. You know, the radio people can't hear this. It's a picture of McCarrick surrounded by other Catholic priests with their dangling crosses around their necks and their little white neck. I don't know what you call them. They have a name, but, you know. And they've all got their hands pressed together, being very, very reverent to our God up above. Okay, anyway. McCarrick is the first cardinal in the U.S. to ever be criminally charged with a sexual crime against a minor, according to Mitchell Garabedian, a well-known lawyer for church sexual abuse victims. God, in law schools, we can have an entire course devoted to Catholic sexual abuse, or maybe just religious sexual abuse. You know, a lawyer can specialize in that. Well, there are lawyers that specialize in that. Okay, and Mitchell Garabedian, a well-known lawyer, blah, 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 who is representing the man alleging the abuse by McCarrick. And, okay, so, well, it's getting on toward time for sending this into KPCA LP. And I say, as part of the introduction, along with my intro music, that the views of the Midnight Skeptic, me, are not necessarily the views of KPCA or Petaluma Community Access or any of its affiliates. Well, my views should be their views. My views, as correct as they are, should be the views of all my listeners. All right? You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats.